I don't know. I want to write music that's real for people. I don't want to write things that are bullshit. I don't know. I don't want to write bullshit. I want to write things that are real that I think about and struggle with.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers podcast network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today I have Red and Gray from Red's Head. So, Red and Gray, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
So today we're going to be listening to your song Glitch, which we just recorded in the studio here. So without further ado, let's listen to the song.
This girl that I met drove one that was cloud blue. She drove us home drunk from the bar, had water for us in the trunk of her car. I asked her to hang, she said she moved away indefinitely. I've been having some crazy dreams, witches from my home astral project to me. They're scared of the power that's within me. Even the archangel can't see through me. My power comes from making friends with the trees. It's rooted in me. Wait till I make the universe my bitch. Until then I'll be manifesting my own bliss. The trees say hi as I skate by, as I watch for your glitch. Reality remains whatever you decide. Last weekend I went on a bender. Vodka, coke and tabs, weed and nicotine. Latin witchcraft instead of sleep. Hammocking in some raspberry green tea. Chicago indie kids know how to party. High frequencies. Wait till I make the universe my bitch. Until then I'll be manifesting my own bliss. The trees say hi as I skate by, as I watch for your glitch. a 6'1" twig with too many hobbies. But I can't live off of strawberries. My tummy looks normal to me. The concept of food just disinterests me, unfortunately. Wait till I make the universe my bitch. Until then I'll be manifesting my own bliss. The trees say hi as I skate by, as I watch for your glitch. Reality remains whatever you decide. Whatever you decide.
Welcome back. So, I guess my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the lyrics or was it the music?
I wrote this song together, the lyrics and the melody and the chords at the same time. I think I picked a chord progression and then I started improvising on it and I found a melody that I liked and then I just wrote the whole thing in one sitting. Like that, from front to back.
You said that it started off with the first line. So it really was, I want to buy a Subaru was the first line?
Yeah, that was the first line. I was seeing a girl that I met at a bar, and then I was thinking about it and texted her and asked her to hang out, and she said she moved. She said she moved indefinitely. So I was like, I'll write this in the song.
Yeah. Like, so that's like verbatim.
Like, quote.
Indefinitely.
Quote, I'm moving indefinitely. Like, no. Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. I think about the structure of the song and kind of what's going on lyrically. There's the interplay of what's happening musically. There's the four chords that happen in it. There's enough variation that it changes with the chorus, with the verses. I'm curious, like, how did this start shaping up into the song that it became?
I wrote it on my porch, and I remember playing it for my friend, one of my roommates that came outside. I was like, I just wrote a song. Do you want to hear it? He didn't like it at all. He was like, no, I don't like it. I was like, okay, like, what's wrong with it? Or what do you think? And he said that it was too wordy and that there was zero structure. And I was like, that's what I want. Like, that's on purpose. Like, I was trying to fix my own brain in a song where it's just all of my raw thoughts that come out. It's supposed to be just, I wrote a verse. That's what I had in my mind at the time. And I just kept going with that verse. And sometimes each line was completely random, but it told a bunch of different stories that happened to me in the last couple months when I wrote that song.
I'm curious. So, Gray, when did you become a part of this song?
I would say that this song, along with most of Red's music, is very improvised and, like, it's usually not the same several times over. So, like, I would just say that from playing the song several times, I've kind of, like, figured out where I like to sit. We have some amazing musicians in Red's head, and they definitely do a great job backing up Red's vocals. The way that I came about, I guess, joining Red's head was actually through a mutual friend who knew I played guitar and had never heard me. I'd never heard them play. And they were just like, hey, do you want to come jam in Red's basement? And I was like, yes, I'd love to. I don't know. I feel like it's been a very amazing, like, learning experience for me as a slightly newer player compared to the rest of the band, having these, like, great jazz and other genre musicians there to support me.
I was thinking about the structure, and one of the things that you said earlier, Red, was that these are just these different stories kind of coming together, but also, and allow me to extrapolate and maybe make a few assumptions too, but each verse is kind of a different story, yes, but also I feel like you're using it as a way to kind of explain you, right? A little bit like, this is me. I feel like there's these two push and pull moments where some of the verses are very much about something very directly like reality, and then others feel very escapism, where it's this thing of, you know, there's a reality of the girl that drove the Subaru, and then you have going into this idea of, I've been having some crazy dreams. I guess I'm not saying it right, but I guess I feel like there's this cool push and pull between reality and like escapism, and also like getting your own sense of power or answers maybe about your own self. I'm just curious about your thoughts about how this came together.
Again, I was sitting on the porch one day, and I think it happened before I was writing the song. I don't know if you will relate to this or not, but sometimes I'll be sitting outside and I just feel like there's a glitch. I saw a glitch in reality. Like I was sitting there and I saw like the lights flicker, or like on the street, or in a particular way that was like, okay, this was just this, like, this is a simulation, and they just like tweaked with it. Why did I just see the same car pass by like this many times? Or why did I just see 5 black SUVs, like the same shape, just pass my house for no reason, like of all different kinds of people in them? The song is talking about how it's a check-in about where I was at in my life, about what was going on with me in general, and how I cope with being and living in a simulation. So how I escape the simulation, and things that I do to escape it, and things that I do in my mannerisms that don't escape it, that I'm working on to like escape reality more, I guess. The girl with the Subaru, I remember meeting her at the bar and then going outside, and I'm like, that's your car? Like, you're kidding, that's not your car. Like, how's that your car? She's like, yeah, like, this is my cloud blue Subaru. I'm like, okay, has to be a joke. And then we get in her car, and the lyric says, she drove us home drunk from the bar. She wasn't drunk, we were drunk. She was like, do you want water? And we were like, yes, we want water. And she had a full case of water in her trunk, like ready for this moment. And I was like, you were prepared, like, this is crazy. And then I just start talking about how I had a house show, and I met some people in my hometown, and they came visit, and they were performing. We got into some witchcraft, and eventually I was in a coven of witches that it went bad very fast, and I was inducted into it without consent. Didn't know that I was in it yet. It's basically talking about how after I found out that I was in it, and they're like, yeah, you're in it. I was like, okay. They told me that they were astral projecting to me to figure out what my aura was, like what color my aura was, and they wanted to figure out how much power and energy I held. His best friend, the guy that came to visit, was supposedly an archangel, or I don't know. That's what they said. They said he was an archangel, and so they had him astral project to me in my sleep to figure out my energy, and he couldn't reach me. He reached me, but he couldn't figure out what was going on at all. Had no idea. Couldn't break through my wards because I set myself up for success in that. So I was like, yeah, I kept having these dreams where I would be like shaking and saying things and yelling or getting up and kicking and all of this in my dream, and I won't wake up, and then they'll be shaking me to wake up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was not here for like quite a while.
I thought a lot of that was figurative or even just metaphorical, but wow.
Yeah.
I had my own glitch moment too of like, was that actually, so that was actually real? That seems to be the more glitchy thing, right? Is that that was actually that was based on a real event rather than I'm curious about the Latin witchcraft instead of sleep. Is that referring back to the Coven of Witches?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
He was in my kitchen saying witchcraft mantras and speaking in Latin to me. Like literally, yes. Like speaking in Latin to me, like witchcraft in my kitchen. And we didn't sleep. That night we did witchcraft all night long. And I had a house show the next day. So it was interesting. Yeah.
And of course, the Chicago indie kids coming down from Chicago.
Mm-hmm,
for
the house
hanging
show.
out in yes.
Yes, it's for the house show. Yeah. Grace
I'm a Chicago indie kid.
Yeah.
Nice.
That lyric is about after I started having parties here and shows in the music scene, the energy in the room and all the people was just amazing. And I noticed most of the people were from Chicago. And they're all indie kids that come to the show.
Yeah.
So it's like Chicago indie kids. And then they all have high frequencies. Yeah. They have high vibrations.
I feel like it was kind of like a double entendre almost, because it's like high frequency, like partying a lot, and also like partying like high frequency as in like high energy.
So, Gray, you mentioned that a lot of the other members of Red's Head have some jazz background, etc. And like, how do you feel about how that meshes together with the overall sound of like Red's Head, and even more specifically this song?
I feel like I've struggled with mental health for a really long time. A lot of these scenarios aren't necessarily like, they're very far away from my reality, especially at the time that the song was written, but in many ways reflected kind of the emotions that I was going through. Coming into Red's Head, I was not in a great place mental health wise, and I felt like in many ways being able to express myself musically in that way helped a lot. And I guess like circling back to the previous question, I think that while obviously jazz musicians tend to be very flexible in terms of style, just because it requires a lot of knowledge and intuition and experience, I think that it adds to the sound of the band, because in many ways we're all kind of in our own heads thinking about how do I add to the song the best that I can. We all do it in very different ways, but at the end I think it comes together to create like a much more pretty and nuanced picture at the end, especially because I feel like musically we're not all the same mindset, and we all come from like pretty different backgrounds in terms of like our influences and stuff. So I think that it doesn't really detract from the sound.
Okay, so I wrote a lot of my music. I wanted it to be played with a band, but I wrote this on ukulele, just singing it with ukulele. A lot of my music, I write the chords. I don't really write melodies for guitar at all. I just give them chords and I say, okay, here, play, improv. We shuffle all of our musicians in Red's Head because we always have a lot of gigs and nobody's ever available at the same time. We have different people play for us at every gig and everyone just learns the music. So if it's just chords, it's not easy, but it's easier for people that are guitarists that have jazz background to just pick up chords and improv on it than us be like, hey, play this exact thing at this part for every song. If we can just give them chords and be like, hey, improv this, I want this here, I want this here, or they can just listen to other musicians and get the vibe. I don't know. I want to write music that's real for people. I don't want to write things that are bullshit. I don't know. I don't want to write bullshit. I want to write things that are real, that I think about and struggle with. If I'm going to say something to the world, I'd rather say something that other people can't say or are scared to say that will help somebody else that is hearing it. That's like one thing I always try to do. The last verse is talking about, what's the word? What's the word we came up with in the car?
Yeah, I know, but I can't think of the word.
We have bad eating habits.
Yes,
That's
habits.
the word we came up with. We have bad eating habits. I'm on stage singing. It's interesting to me to sing this for a crowd that's different every time. It's interesting to get their reaction when I sing this last verse every time. It's different. But I'll sing the verse. It says, I wish that I loved my body, a 6'1" twig with too many hobbies. And it's like a joke, but it's not a joke. It's completely literal. Our band has a lot of trans people, and all of us have like body dysmorphia and gender dysphoria. And that's one thing a lot of people struggle with, but not many musicians will talk about it because it's a new thing that's being accepted. So when it's like, I wish that I loved my body, a 6'1" twig with too many hobbies. Yeah, I'm 6'1".
I definitely resonated with the too many hobbies.
Yeah, and then I can't live off of strawberries. Yeah, I'd rather just eat strawberries. I don't want to eat real food. I'll just eat strawberries and be fine.
Right.
But
frozen mango chunks are my preferred fruit snack thing. But yeah,
I feel like maybe just because there's not as much recorded music out there of Red's Head, I feel like Red's Head manages to be more of like a live band. Like that's the vibe, right?
Yeah,
so you kind of alluded to that, but I mean, it's one thing to record something and then kind of put it out there and then just kind of wait to see if an echo comes back, like of somebody that relates to it or resonates with the words. As I said, like you alluded to that, is that you will perform this in front of people. And I guess maybe I'm going to turn this as a little twist, is like in writing this song, I'm fascinated. So maybe I'll just disregard all of that before, but don't worry, I'll try to bring it back together. Yeah. But no, just because I keep this is my glitch here. So
yeah, exactly.
So I guess maybe one of the things that I think is interesting is when you write something that's personal, and some of it is kind of this out of the ether, and even some of the stuff that is literal. Are you finding this sense of things that you didn't know about yourself as you revisit and as you perform this for other people? Like, does performing it for other people give it a different like meaning? Does that make sense at all? Like sometimes I feel like there's this weird thing of like the audience becomes not necessarily like a mirror, but more of like a filter or something that like can bounce new information back at you. And maybe I don't know, I don't mean to be all like metaphysical about it, but like there's something about empathy and being able to experience that live sound. So as a live band, has there been like this sense of learning new things by like performing this?
When I'm performing, I'm always anxious. I have stage fright very bad. I'm always freaking out. When I sing this song, sometimes I'll just flip a switch in my brain or in my mask, I guess, where I will just start pretending to be confident, because that's one of the best ways to make yourself see that you are confident. When I sing these lyrics, I feel confident when I'm like singing it live. It makes me most of the time, no, I don't feel confident. I pretend to be. Like the chorus mainly, it's kind of therapeutic to take back all of these things in your life that happened to you and just everything that is overwhelming, I guess. The chorus where it says like, wait till I make the universe my bitch, it's like a warning almost to everyone and like the audience. Like I'll look everyone in the eyes and like just wait until I get like control of all of these things that I have to deal with. Wait till I am able to just cope with all of it and see what happens to me then. Like that's kind of what I'm talking about there. It's interesting to me when I'll talk to people after the show and be like, oh, did you like it? Like, what did you like? I always say, what song did you like the best? And people will say Glitch or Someone Kind, right? Most of the time.
Yeah.
We like playing Glitch last too, because we'll do like a jam section at the end where everyone's just improvising for a while and it's not notated where we stop or who solos at all. When I ask people about this song, they'll say, oh yeah, I like the song that has the lyric, I can't live off of strawberries. And I'm like, okay, so this is interesting to me that one of the only lyrics people have like regurgitated back at me of my lyrics that I've asked them, like, what lyrics did you like? What did you like? They'll say that lyric, that verse is, it's always about, I wish I loved my body, 6'1" twig with too many hobbies, but I can't live off of strawberries. And they always remember that for some reason. And it's interesting to me when people come up to me and say that, or I ask them, I say, what was your favorite? And they say, I know this lyric, and that's the only thing I remember about the whole song. They won't even remember any of the lyrics in the chorus. They'll only remember that verse. And it's interesting because I know that it hit them very hard. If they remember that verse and not the chorus, then I know that they have to be dealing with or have dealt with the same thing that I went through. And I can just see like the appreciation in people when I sing things like that they've experienced also. But nobody sings about these things because it's not a happy thing to sing about.
I think the thing about that verse that stands out most is I feel like that's the most laid bare. Yeah. Everything else kind of is, how do I say, like, is kind of buried in a story. And then this one is just, it's like black and white. It's not in the context of a story of something that happened. It's like all of the other stuff seems like it's things in the past, and then this one is the one that is like the reality, and whether or not that is at that point the specific reality in the song, it's like a spotlight, the one thing. When I listened to it, that was the one thing. That is the verse that stands out. So I mean, I guess that leads into one of my questions, which is like, I'll start with Gray. What is your favorite part of the song?
It's hard for me because I think lyrically and musically, my favorite parts are different. I'm always going to be partial to like jamming just because it's a much more freeing experience, I guess. So I really enjoy the ending section of the song, just the vibe that it creates. But in this recording, I'd say that my favorite part would probably be, not to echo everyone else, but I think that the lyrics are in the second verse are very strong. And my first time listening to them, which was last Halloween, I went to a house show at Red's, and this was the 1-year anniversary of my grandpa and my ex-boyfriend both passing away on the same day, and it weighed on me a lot emotionally. And I think having that experience, being able to go to, you know, someone's house who I didn't know and hear music that really spoke to me in that way just made a huge difference. And ultimately I ended up, I guess, reconnecting with it as one of the musicians playing it. And I feel like that it's a very emotional song. And as most of Red's music is, I just think that that's a big reason why it connects with people and why I just feel like I want to keep coming back to it, because every time I hear it in a new light.
Red, what's your favorite part?
My favorite part is either the first verse at the beginning or the part where it says, "The trees say hi as I skate by, as I watch for your glitch." Yeah.
I think that the way that you set out the imagery in a lot of the parts of the song makes it like more of a visual experience. It only makes the more literal parts like hit harder, I guess. Having everything else be like super descriptive and like it's like a camera in some way. It's not depicting the emotions, it's depicting the imagery. And then when you go to the emotions, it like, yeah. I'm circling back on what I was saying.
At this time, I would hang out with trees a lot. I would go to the park and just sit by a tree and just talk to them, and they'd talk to me, and I would tell them about things. I would tell people all the time and be like, "Oh, do you hear them talking? Like, they're talking." And then they'd be like, "No, I don't hear the trees talking. No." And I'd be like, "You can't hear them?" And then some people would be like, "What did they say? What did they say?" And I'm like, they say, "It's gonna be okay. It's okay. It's okay." That's most of the time. That's what I'd hear them say. But it's funny that the parts that you would think are completely not literal are quite literal.
Why did you pick Glitch as the song you wanted to talk about today?
Everyone likes this song, and so I thought, if we have nothing recorded so far at all out, there's nothing out. It's only things we've recorded by ourselves, or not full recordings. Nothing is out. So I was like, if we're gonna put out the first song, I guess, then I feel like we could do Glitch as a single, because everyone likes Glitch. Everyone likes Glitch, and it has a lot of lyrics that are very meaningful. It's mostly because of the lyrics that I picked it to talk about. Last night we were playing music for a while, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do, and I was like, oh, like, I don't want to do Glitch anymore. Like, let's do a different song. But then I was like, oh, like,
right off the bat last night, you were like, I don't want to do Glitch anymore.
I was like, no, like, I don't want to do Glitch. Like, fuck Glitch. Like, we're not doing Glitch.
And then
like,
we were probably like going over, it was like one or two other songs that we were thinking about for like a good like couple hours.
No, it was hours. Hours. But we were just fiddling around. We were writing new guitar parts for a different song. We were like, oh, maybe we should do this one. But I was like, wait, like, I already sent him the lyrics of this one, so he's gonna have questions for this song. So it'll be mean if I'm like, oh, we're gonna actually do a completely different song. So
I mean, that's happened before. But, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I can roll with it. Not that this isn't a great song to talk about. So I I feel like it's got a lot to it that you lend a voice to things that not everybody is really going to talk about. So
I just think there's so many different ways to interpret the words, and even though a lot of it is very literal, different people take different things from it. That's part of what makes it a good song, I guess. It's very clear about its intentions, but it's not overly analytical or like too direct about it, because it's a difficult topic. You want to somewhat dress it up in nice clothes, but it's still like metaphorical clothes. You know what I mean?
I think Glitch is trying to say that even if you don't have everything figured out, or you don't have a grasp on anything that's going on in your life doesn't mean that you are just fucked. You're not. You have so many options, and there's so many things you can manifest and do for yourself to better your situation. Glitch is talking about all of these things have happened to me, and I'm stuck in this loop of just hierarchy and government and simulation that you get lost in what is real and what isn't real, or what matters and what doesn't matter. Just checking in with yourself. There's so many other different ways to do that. In this case, I did it via writing a song. Checking in with yourself to make sure that everything is what's going on with yourself. What do you want? Figuring out what you actually want in your life in general, and figuring out how you're going to get there and how you're going to manifest it to happen to yourself. Just telling yourself that it won't ever happen, whatever it is that you want won't happen to you, is not going to help. You have to manifest your own reality. That's the main thing that it is trying to hit at.
I guess my perspective is slightly different. Growing up, I didn't have religion or like anything, I guess, like that in my life, and so I've grown to be a very realistic and like kind of like brutally realistic person about myself, and then like overly optimistic about everyone else. I think that in many ways this song kind of does remind me of just like humanity, and reality is not as cut and dry as it may seem to me. And while I don't necessarily think that like, I mean, I'm a bio major, I'm like, I guess, very like realistic about a lot of these things. And I find that diverging from that and going into this, okay, manifesting things, it works because your intentions are there. And I think that that's the most important part, is like having your intentions in the place that you want to be. And I think that nothing is achievable if you don't actually want it.
Champagne is also a band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Gray, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
I think that one of the first ones that I really got into and started like getting to know people at would be the Spice Rack, and it's right across the street from my place this year. And I feel like I've just found a lot of very cool people, heard some great bands there, and just been like a pleasant experience every time I've been. Well, I'd like to say that about many other places as well. I don't think that any other place has been like consistently chill. I'm actually not in touch with the ownership of Spice Rack. I don't know them, but I know a lot of people who frequent there.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is it's just like a lot of Allen Hall kids, and I was an Allen Hall kid. I feel like its proximity to Allen Hall, along with a lot of other factors, make it probably my favorite. And I've just been there the most out of any other venue other than Red's.
Red, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
I'd say Cranert. When I came to U of I, most of it was because of Cranert. I didn't know how I would be able to sit with myself going to another music school that had a concert hall that was less good than Cranert, because I got to play in Cranert a couple times in band growing up, and the sound in there is just amazing. I remember one time we were doing Super State for band. It was my first Superstate, and it was the first one in years that we'd gotten into. And I remember we played Bach 12. We just played the first chord and cut it off, and I remember like just start crying immediately. Like half the band start crying immediately. The reverb is 12 seconds long in Cranert, but they built the entire hall based on sound. All the fabric on every seat and the carpets and the ceiling, everything is made specifically for good sound.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Red's house venue. I want to know about, like, how did that come about? Like, when did you decide to have a venue?
Freshman year of college, I was in a dorm, and I told all my friends I'm going to throw huge parties next year. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get a house, and I'm going to throw huge parties. The best parties you've ever seen. And they were like, okay. And then I got a house, and I didn't have roommates, so I found random roommates, filled the house. I told all the roommates I'm going to be throwing huge parties, and you have to be okay with it. It's going to be loud. I'm a music major. I play music all the time, and this is what I'm going to do. And they were like, okay. It was August, and my friend said that their roommate wanted to do a show, and I was like, okay. And they needed a house. They didn't have anywhere. And then I was like, okay, I'd be interested in like talking with them and seeing what is going to go on. And then they were like, okay, we want to do a show. This is all the bands. This is what we want. At first it was with a club. I told them that my basement was completely full of wood. It was a wood shop, like in the basement. Whoever left my house before me left all of their things covering the entire basement. So it was like hours of labor to get rid of all of these things. I told the landlord, I was like, are you going to come get this stuff? And he was like, no. So it sat on the front lawn, a huge pile of stuff for this first party. And that we took pictures of all the junk because it was so funny. I had been doing all the work with the one person that said they wanted to do a party. And then the club that was doing it with me stopped responding. And I was like, okay. They never told me they didn't want to do a show anymore. So then we were like, okay, well, we're going to do our own show, and we might have to switch some of the bands and switch every logistic, but we're going to do our own show. So then we did our own show, and it was the biggest show I ever had. There was probably 400 people in my house at one time, and I had a bunch of bands that were amazing. I didn't have a band yet, so I did a solo act, and I opened it. One of the bands that I had at the first show was Kangaroo Court, and it was one of their first shows that they've ever done. Now it's like cool to say that they played it my first show, and it was their first show, because now they kind of blew up a bit. But there was a lot of people, and I have friends that I've heard tell me about the show. They weren't my friend at the time, they just came to the show, and then they became my friend later. And they're like, yeah, like that first show was when I decided I want a band, I want to start a band, I want to play at this house, I want to come here, I want to do this all the time. And it inspired a lot of people, and it was beautiful. I loved it. It was great. It's a luxury I get to have, where I get to pick what kind of live music I want to have in my own basement to listen to. And I have a very wide genre of music that I like listening to. Every band is different that plays at the show. They're never all rock or all indie or all rap, sometimes, but barely ever. But most of the time, it's all of those together. Yeah,
I feel like there's a good mix, some good bands for everyone to enjoy. And first of all, the stories you were telling are about your old place. And not recently, but like at some point you moved over to another place.
Yeah, I had an issue with cops at the first place because my neighbor did not like it, or me. So he would call the cops on every single show multiple times a night. Right. It came to the point where I was going to court for noise complaints, and it was too much money, can't do it, but I can't stop doing this, so I needed to figure something out, so I moved. But I moved down the street because I knew that the neighborhood was perfect, but it was just this neighbor. It was only one neighbor that was an issue with. Nobody else was calling. So I moved down the street, and I soundproofed this next house better, so we've had the cops come once, and they did not give me a ticket. So we're much better off now. And also, the house is, I think, better for it than the last house was.
Cool. I definitely think that the neighborhood itself has, like, a lot of music going on. Yeah. Like Urbana, specifically that area of Urbana, but just in general, I feel like there's a lot of good, like, student bands and, like, just, not just students, but, like, just good vibes. It's a good area.
So, Gray, what do you think makes a good music scene?
I think that there's a lot of factors that like can combine to make a good music scene, but I think every scene has its own combination of these things. And I think it's mostly like safety and like a sense of community are the big two. and then start thinking about like smaller details, like, I don't know, what kinds of bands are in the area, like what does the scene look like / what is it leaning towards. And I know that a lot of smaller scenes have like their own sound and stuff, and so historically I think that's less the case now with social media, and music is able to get everywhere, so you're not necessarily working from the same template of experiences as like people around you. But I think that it's just really important that everyone is able to feel at home in the scene and they can be a part of it too, because that's how you grow a scene.
Right.
Just inclusivity, I guess.
3 words that come to my brain are safety, inclusivity, and art in general. Safety, huge concern, always a concern. But if you're on top of it and you're prepared for whatever you think might happen, then you're much better off than if you're not prepared. Or if you don't think that something bad could happen, then bad things can happen. Inclusivity is very important, because if people feel like it's a safe space for them to be and exist and be themselves to their full extent, then they're going to keep coming back, because they'd rather spend their weekend at that venue rather than at a bar with a bunch of people that aren't like themselves. There's a big, huge bar scene of college kids. They all go to the bar every week, a couple times a week. Several times a week. There's like a bar culture here that is very different than any of the house scenes. The scenes are much more inclusive than just going out to a public place like that, where you can get in, you might not get in. I don't know, you might need to know somebody to get in, you might need to be pretty to get in. When you have a scene like that, there's a space for people to come together that aren't able to go out and just enjoy themselves wherever they want to, because they are from a background that some people don't accept. And if you go out to those bars and things like that, there's a much higher possibility that something very bad could happen than if you go to a house that has a lot of other gay people at it. If you go to a bar, there's so many things that people can just be critical of. Like, I always remember talking to people, meeting people at the bar when I would go. They would always say the same things. They'd talk about my body and they'd talk about things about me, and I'm like, okay, I've never met you. Why are you talking to me about these things? And why am I not accepted here? I'm not just existing. Why are you coming up to me telling me these things? I don't need to know them. If I'm at the house show, nobody ever says anything to me except love and giving me confidence and supporting me, lifting everyone up. Also, I don't like going to spaces where it's just white dominated. Like, the bars have much more white people than anything else, and if everyone feels welcome, I would rather be there, because everyone's having more fun.
I think that the local house show scene actually played like a pretty big part in my gender / self-expression journey, and I knew I was non-binary before coming into college, but wasn't really able to express it in any way, like at all, pretty much. And I guess going to the house shows provided me with a safe space to experiment with these things, and it turned out that I really enjoyed expressing myself in not a heteronormative way. I don't think that I would have been able to find that or find it as quickly if I wasn't a part of the music scene.
Surrounded by people that want to create like you do, it helps inspire you. It gives it inspiration.
I think also it's just nice to have other people who you can relate to in a much stronger way than I think the house show scene does tend to draw. Not necessarily like the same kinds of people, but like similar. Some of it is like ideologically similar, but also like in terms of life experiences and stuff might have similar trajectories. And so I think that it definitely like yeah, just having a space where everyone can just, I guess, be themselves and create in any way that they do create is great to have. And a lot of people that come here moved from somewhere else, and they had their ways of creating when they were somewhere else, and it's different when you move. You have to find somewhere else to create and apply yourself and meet other people that like creating like you do. And when there's just a scene like that people can be into photography, they can be into graphic art, they can be in physical art, they could be into fashion. All of these different kinds of creative people can just come together and do what they love in a space together, and everyone's just nice and accepting is so great. Because I would go to the bar and I would be dancing all night long, and people would come up to me and be like, why are you still dancing? Why are you dancing still? What are you doing? You haven't stopped dancing. Or I'd be standing in a conversation at the bar and I'd be dancing the whole time, and they would ask me, why are you dancing?
And I'm like, why aren't you dancing? Like,
Right,
why
there's
are people
vibey music.
judging me for dancing right now? Like, you know, and if you can just go somewhere like that and express yourself, you get to know yourself better if you're around people that accept you also.
I came into the scene doing visual art, actually. And I think that being a part of it let me expand my like options in terms of visual art, but also let me get into this whole other field of like music. And I feel like before being a part of the house show scene, I was playing music, but I wasn't being creative. And after, I guess I just kind of was put in the right circumstances where I felt like I was able to actually innovate and do something that I wouldn't have done before.
I feel like my art gets a lot of exposure because of the scene, because there's more people that are watching and listening than they were before. When you're writing songs in your bedroom, and when you're writing songs in your bedroom and you don't know who to show it to or who you want to show it to, or if you're ready to show it to anybody, then one day you find somewhere where you can sing anything you want, and people will, if it's good, then people will think it's good, and they will give you feedback, and they'll listen, and they'll dance. That's an insane difference from like growing up and being a music nerd that everyone knew as a music kid. It was weird to be a music kid. It wasn't cool. And now when you can actually apply what you've been working on your entire life in this scene like that, everyone is like surprised by you because they never knew that you did this, because you didn't show them that you did this, and it was just something you did by yourself for years and worked on for your whole life. But and it was behind closed doors always. So once there's somewhere where you can actually apply it on a stage like that, when you make your own stage, people will come to your house and listen to it, and they think it's cool. They all want to come. They all want to listen to it. They think it's cool to be fans of the musicians, and it's interesting how all of us went from being music nerds
To still music nerds.
Still music nerds, but people think of us differently than we are. Yeah.
Champaign is also a band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Red, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
My cats and weed.
Tell me a little bit about your cats.
I have two cats. They're named Ryu and Toothless. And Ryu...
Did you say toothless?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So Ryu means dragon in Japanese, right?
Yeah.
I named him after a chief herbalist in an anime, which is like witchcraft. Toothless was named after Toothless the dragon from How to Train Your Dragon. But he does have teeth.
So does Toothless from How to Train a Dragon, to be fair.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you got to be accurate to the character, you know?
Yeah.
I think that they
fair.
fit their names very well.
Yeah.
Toothless is a silly little guy.
They're my little buddies. They're adorable. They hang out with me all day long. They follow me around. They talk to me.
What should I ask about weed, though? That's the question. So, like, I mean, because you'd be like, well, what's your favorite thing about weed? Right? Like, what do you say, right? Like, I always get, there's indica and then there's sativa.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Hybrid.
Hybrid.
So you can do
hybrid.
Both.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm one of the few people that just it just makes me stupid. Like, and I don't like feeling stupid, and so that's maybe my own issues. But it's always like I can't even hold a conversation.
Oh yeah.
And it's so bad. It's just like not my. But
yeah.
I don't mind you know, I'm always for a contact high, literally. So that's cool with me. But yeah, just for some reason I always just have too much, I guess. I don't know. But
I think it's also just like different people react to it differently.
Yeah.
And I know people who will get like literal opposite reactions from like smoking the same weed. Like,
right.
And it's also like tolerance based.
Yeah.
And how many years you've done it or when you did it first.
Oh yeah, that's true actually.
So like
Wait, what?
Because your endocannabinoid system doesn't actually develop fully until you're like 25. So if you do it before you're 25, your tolerance will change differently, and also like it can just have long-term effects on how weed affects you.
Yeah, and if you have been doing it, it depends on how many years you've been smoking, if how weed still affects you. Most of the time it's like 2-3 years. If you've been smoking for that long, but like consistently, then you won't have negative effects really, unless it's once in a blue moon, but not really. Like then at that point, your tolerance is much different than it was in the beginning.
It's also different for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
I know people who only started getting bad effects after several years of doing it.
Also, sometimes you'll smoke too much weed and then you'll get sick. And
have you heard of?
I'm gonna say no.
And it's called CHS, cannabinoid hypermesis syndrome. It basically is just like you smoke too much weed and you like vomit a bunch and you have to go to the hospital, and it really sucks.
I've never heard like that's even a thing.
Yep.
It's just like
and then after you get it, you can't smoke weed anymore. It'll like always make you feel that effect.
Oh
it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. This is the
Fun fact.
Sven learns weed facts today. This is awesome. Yeah. So I guess, Gray, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
This is a really difficult question. I really love animals. I think that sometimes I get along a little bit better with animals than I do with people, but it depends on the right people, I guess. Honestly, I'd say that like mountains and like cool weather, honestly, is like, that's all I really need. I need mountain, I need cold weather, maybe a snowboard. I'm set for life.
So
I love snowboarding.
So you're in Illinois.
I'm in Illinois. I'm a little out of my element.
Are you originally from Champaign-Urbana area?
I'm from Chicago.
Oh,
so it's not like I grew up around mountains. It's just like my favorite experience, I guess. This tattoo is of a mountain that I forced my family to climb with me. I'm an enjoyer of elevation.
Where would you want to go?
If
you were to move somewhere.
Move somewhere.
Or, well, I mean, I guess we could go
So
both.
I've thought about this actually, about moving somewhere.
Okay.
I really like the mountains in the Pacific Northwest, and I feel like their weather is like really consistent, which is what I need. Illinois sucks. It goes from like the coldest, like colder than the coldest winter that'll be in the Pacific Northwest, because they have Atlantic breezes that bring like warm air there. And it's hotter than it is in the summer there. So it's just like worse on both extremes. And I'm like definitely a cool weather enjoyer. I overheat very easily. So I think that like, Pacific Northwest, that being US or Canada. I guess outside the US, like there's some European countries that I'm considering going to grad school in, because whatever, it doesn't matter. I have an EU citizenship, so I'm trying to get that free school.
Nice. US, when will you ever figure it out?
Literally, like we won't. It feels a bit like a lost cause, but I know it's not. It's just like the US, there's so much, I guess, disagreement about it, and it seems like most people, especially depending on the generation, are very unwilling to accept change and the fact that we live in a different world than they did growing up, and it's just very demotivating.
It's like this weird concept of I don't know, it's just because you suffered, somebody else has to suffer,
right?
Right?
No. And it's not even equating like even things, because like, okay, I understand the struggles that existed before, many of them don't exist anymore. But there's also a lot of new struggles that people are facing. And economically speaking, the U.S. is in a much worse state than it was when a lot of these people were going to school. But
right.
It's really about perspective, I think. People just like aren't really willing to step into other people's shoes. I don't know. I can't like justify what they're doing because I'm not them, but like that's what I interpret it as. It's probably not though. It's a mix of
yeah. No, I never understood the whole, somehow if you get something that someone else doesn't believe you have the right to, that it's like cheating or it's like you're getting a free handout, and I'm just like, oh, well, that's not necessarily the case. It's like, are you dealing with the same adversity that this person is dealing with? Or anyway, sorry, I
get what you're saying.
This is the next episode of Sven Gets on a Soapbox and Tries to Fix the World. People are really concerned about fair. Those are the same exact people that would be like, but life's not fair.
Yeah, literally. I just feel like people will do what serves them best, and even when that ultimately is to the detriment of the people in their surroundings, they're like, okay, but this is good for me, so like, why would I give a shit? Like,
Red and Gray, thank you so much for being on the show and telling me all about your song Glitch and the Champaign-Urbana music scene and your venue Reds, and telling me about your favorite non-musical things. So thank you so much for being on the show.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Gray.
This is Red.
Reminding you, great music is out there. Go find it where you live.
What's your favorite thing about weed?
That's a wrap.
Champaign is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Studio Sound bigger on the inside.
Great music is out. Great music is out
we need to time it. We need to time it.
I did it.
You did this, and then you started on one.
I went 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Okay, ready?